Hmm. Who let the Dutch guy in the room?
Bonjour tout le monde, on va attendre un petit minute ou deux puis on pourra débuter. Donc, bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Hull.
Right. Max, tu me fais signe quand tout le monde s'est connecté?
Je pense qu'on peut débuter.
OK. Probablement qu'il y en a aussi qui vont écouter la présentation en rediffusée. Donc, bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue à la dégustation ce soir. Petite dégustation quand même spéciale. On est content. On a réussi à avoir des nouveaux invités cette année, des embouteilleurs indépendants, des nouvelles marques qui sont sur le marché depuis quelque peu. Donc, aujourd'hui, la dégustation va se passer en anglais. Si vous êtes plus ou moins à l'aise avec l'anglais, juste à nous écrire dans le chat et je ferai je traduirai les propos d'Éric. Puis si tout le monde est à l'aise avec l'anglais, ben, je m'éviterai de traduire, donc juste nous le dire. Eric, if you want to introduce yourself.
Bonsoir. Mon français est très mauvais. So, je prends mon français avec Duolingo. Donc, il est très mal. Mais j'essaie de parler lentement en anglais, s'il vous plaît.
All right.
Merci. That's my French. I'm sorry for butchering it. But yes, I'm Éric Kaye, and I founded Holmes Caye Rums in 2019 in the United States, really because I could not get the rums I wanted to drink in the United States. 5 years ago was a very different time, at least in America. There was no cast strength. There was no single barrel rums. We were just starting to get Foursquare, and Hamden wasn't here yet. We had very few agricoles. It was really a very different rum world 5 or 6 years ago. So I thought, how hard could it be? And I, learned that in America, it's very hard, even harder than Canada, I would say. We have 50 states. Each state has their own laws, their own distributors. There's tiers between that I cannot sell to you. I can't sell to a store. I have to sell to a distributor who sells to a store who sells to you. So our alcohol taxes are not as high as they are in Canada, but because we have an extra layer in between, the prices are more expensive than they should be. So with this group, I don't think I have to talk much about what rum is. I think you all really have a good idea of what rum is and probably know more than me on some things, but we're gonna taste through a few rums. Most of the rums that I've brought originally were what we would call the English style of rums. Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, big pot still rums, molasses based. Because those are really the rums that I spent most of my time visiting around the world. I would go travel scuba diving, mostly in the English-speaking countries, because it's not easy to get to Martinique and Guadeloupe from America. There's no direct flights. It's easier to get to Martinique from Paris than it is from New York, or from probably Montreal. Are there direct flights? Yeah, so I would have to fly up to Montreal and then down. So sadly, I really have not brought in any rums from Martinique or Guadeloupe. We have some Savannah rums we've brought in from Reunion, which we're excited about because we had no access to those rums. Is my English okay? Too fast? Too slow?
Perfect for me.
Très bien.
Tout le monde est à l'aise. Si jamais vous n'êtes pas à l'aise, juste nous écrire dans le chat. Vous pouvez m'écrire en privé aussi si vous êtes gêné de le dire. Il n'y a pas de problème, non? Il n'y a aucune gêne. Puis, s'il y a quoi que ce soit, dites-moi-les, je ferai la traduction. Mais sinon, on est parti.
J'aurai the window de chat. So yes, this is Important things, real age statements, no additives. I don't know if it's the same in Canada, but in America, there's a lot of brands with fake age statements and additives. I'm not going to mention any names, but Solera is a dirty word. Big numbers without years on them is a dirty word. So we really just wanted to do nothing but rum. Cast strength, no additives, or close to cast strength. And that's how we started. Most of the rums were over $100 a bottle, which is a lot in America, where people think rum is $10 a bottle. A store said, "What is $150 rum? It doesn't exist." And then we branched out in the last 2 years to come out with lower priced rums. That you could use in a bar that cost under $50 US. We introduced our Heritage Blend, which is the one on the left, our two rums from Reunion, which the Agricole and the Grand Homme, and then a Fiji blend, which I really love for daiquiris. I don't know if you get any of the Plantaret Fiji up in Canada.
Yeah.
So it's similar in age. It doesn't have any sugar in it, so it's comparison to that one. It's a little drier, a little funkier. It's a great daiquiri rum, and this is sort of our line of everyday rums for cocktails for drinking. Me, that's me. You got me live. I told you this story. My background is in music. I spent 25 years composing music for television and film and TV shows and commercials. And really, I fell into rum as a profession just because I wanted to drink better rum. So that's pretty much my career in a nutshell, from music to rum. My friends say you went from one dream job to the next dream job. Le travail de mon rêve. We don't need to talk about this because you all know about the various styles of rums, the French styles, the English styles, the Spanish styles. And I've talked about this. To me, it's more fun to drink rum and talk about it than to talk all about it. Transparency is very important to us. We always list the distillery on the label. We always list the full cask aging, where it was aged, how it was aged on the back of the label. And I don't want to keep you too long before we can start drinking. So let us drink our first rum if we can. Before any questions on anything before we start drinking? Great. So we'll go to Jamaica. I know one of the largest selling rums in Canada is Appleton. Appleton is, one of the 6 distilleries in Jamaica, down from 200 that were there, 100 years ago. 2 of them are owned by Campari, with Appleton and Ray and Nephew. 2 of them are owned by National Rums of Jamaica, which are Long Pond and Clarendon. And then there's the 2 independent distilleries, which are Hamden and Worthy Park. All 6 of them make incredible rum. You can't go wrong. But this one is a Long Pond, which is a 200-plus-year-old distillery in the north. And I chose this one. The ITP stands for Ive Trelawney Pot. Trelawney is where the distillery is. Pot Still is what it is. And Ive was the guy who first came up with this mark. I don't know how familiar you are with Jamaican marks, and really Jamaican rums are classified by the amount of esters and volatile compounds in them, ranging from 0 to a common clean up to 1,600 grams per hectoliter, which is the maximum amount allowed by Jamaican law. You can make a rum much higher than that, and if you go down and visit in Hamden, they'll pull out their 4,000 grams per hectoliter super high ester rum, which is illegal to sell. And that 1,600 limit Does anybody know why that is? Why they made a 1600 grams other than Ivar? Who knows everything? So it really comes down to the Germans and Rumverschnitt, which is what the Germans would do is they would import some concentrated rum, super high ester, mix it with a lot of neutral beet or grain or any neutral spirit, and voila, it would taste like Jamaican rum. And the Jamaicans, caught on saying, hey, if we sell it less concentrated, then they're going to have to use more of our rum to make their Rumverschnitt. And you can still get Rumverschnitt in Germany. It's popular, but that's where that 1600 grams limit for esters came. This one is a very low ester mark. It's about as low as they go on a Jamaican rum. This one is 15 years old, fully tropically aged in Jamaica, which was a nice thing. A lot of the independent bottlers tend to get a lot of their barrels from Europe. So you'll see a large degree of continental aging, either in Liverpool or Scotland or France, which is fine, but it's really not the same as aging in source. Okay, there's a question from Carl. Yeah, here's my answer. We do both. This rum was sourced directly from the national rums of Jamaica. The Four Squares we're going to try are sourced via broker, which I'll talk about. When we started, it was only through brokers because we were nobody. I had no experience. I had no real contacts. I just loved rum. And as we got some reputation, distilleries started reaching out to us. Belize, we went down, and Mahoba in South Africa. And now it's about 50-50. About half of our rums are sourced from 6 or 7 distilleries direct, and the other half we get through either E&A Skier in Amsterdam or the main rum company in the UK. Ideally, to me, it's better to have everything sourced at home, with the distillery to keep as much value in the home country that produced it. Not that Skier and Maine don't serve very useful purposes, but rum in particular has such a history of exploitation and slavery and colonialists. So whenever we can bottle at source, we prefer to do that. The Belize we bottle at source. Our South African rums we're going to be bottling in South Africa. Jamaica, we were going to bottle this in Jamaica, and then COVID hit, and it was just too difficult to get our glass down to Jamaica, and so we just shipped the barrels to New York. We bottle most things in New York State, not too far from the Ontario border, so we can sort of smuggle it over and drive it into Quebec, maybe.
Yeah.
So I
That them in Ontario.
yeah. So this one, typical Jamaican molasses pot still rum from Long Pond, fully aged in ex-bourbon. The overwhelming majority of English style rums are aged in ex-bourbon casks because they're cheap and you can only use a bourbon cask once. I'm finding that's a lot less so in a lot of the Martinique, especially reunion rums in Guadeloupe. They'll use ex-cognac, they'll use Limousin oak, they'll use French casks. But the English almost exclusively use ex-bourbon. Now there's, Richard Seal, for one, is doing a lot of experimentation in different casks to a great degree. Mount Gay is starting to get into it. But really, when you talk about the English style rums, it's ex-bourbon you're talking about. And it's molasses for the most part, although now things are changing in the last couple of years. People are starting to experiment more and use more fresh cane juice, which is kind of a big deal for those countries, but it's not a big deal if you're used to drinking agricole all day long. It's like, of course, fresh cane juice is great. So I chose this barrel and this mark because I really wanted to, Our, challenge and goal in America is that most people consider rum to be Bacardi or a really cheap mixer. And part of our goal is to introduce people to rums, and you can't start them off with a Hamden DOK super high ester. You don't throw somebody into, an English 404 class of advanced Shakespeare. You got to teach them how to read and write. And to me, this is a very approachable Jamaican rum. It's not too, yeah, baby steps, step by step. It's not too funky. It doesn't have too many of those rotten banana, overripe banana, hogo in it. And then we have an EMB, which is the one we follow this up with, which is a higher ester Jamaican mark. So you can sort of see the transition. Unfortunately, we don't have that one in this tasting. We we should do another tasting with like 6 completely different rums sometimes. We've put out 24 different rums since we launched 5 years ago from 10 different countries. So we have plenty of variety to choose from. But I mean, this is just, I'm gonna drink out of this little bottle because I don't have a big bottle here. But I mean, just a classic Jamaican delicious rum. Um, any questions or comments on Long Pond, Jamaica, anything? My crappy French. Yeah. I mean, you get the bananas, but it's not like a heavier high ester Hamden. It's a really approachable Jamaican rum for pure columns, pure pot still. So, um, we'd like to move on. I have a very soft spot in my heart for Foursquare rums. I think Richard Seal is one of the best rum makers in the world, if not the best. Yes. Did I visit the distillery? I did not visit Long Pond because this rum was sourced smack in the middle of COVID. So Jamaica was quarantined. I was all set. April of 2020, I had a whole trip planned to visit all 6 distilleries in Jamaica because we had launched the company, we had set up all the appointments, and bam, the whole world shut down for those years. So I was not able to get into the country for a year or so. In that time, I was still able to get the barrels and ship them up. Since I've been down, I've been back to Hamden and Worthy. I have still yet to visit Long Pond, unfortunately. There were a lot of flavor samples being sent up to New York. The TTB, which is the U.S. alcohol regulatory, is very difficult to work with alcohol samples. You have to get advance approval and lots of so we send a lot of hot sauce, and we send a lot of flavor samples and things like that. So yes, Barbados, I have visited that distillery. And I think Foursquare is definitely one of the top 2 or 3 distilleries in the world, of anything, not just rum. And it was the first rum we brought in 2019. Our first release was 2 barrels of 2005 Foursquare. And I thought, if we didn't sell them, I would have plenty of rum to drink for the rest of my life. But we sold them all, and then I had to buy more rum. So this is about the 6th or 7th different Foursquare release we've put out. And these are sourced from a broker. And every Foursquare rum you will have, with the exception of the ones released by him, or Real McCoy, or Equiano, or Probitas Veritas, they're all sourced from either E&A Skier in Amsterdam or the main rum company because everybody in the world calls Richard Seal and says, "Can I buy a barrel of rum? Can I buy a barrel of rum?" And he doesn't have the time or the energy to deal with those people. So he has a deal with, if you want it, great. He's very supportive of independent bottlers and people that want to use his rum. But Equiano is, I believe it is bottled in Barbados, is it not? Yeah, it is. Equiano, Real McCoy, Probitas, and then the Foursquare lines, Dourly's, RL Seal, Foursquare. Those are the ones that are actually made at the distillery. Everything else goes through the UK or Amsterdam. So he's very supportive of us. He's given lots of good advice and tips. And the deal is you never ask Richard for rum directly. You always know that if you want it, it's available, but you have to buy it from Liverpool. If you want a single barrel or if you want bulk, you have to buy it from Amsterdam. And that seems to have worked out well for everyone. Would I love to have purely 100% tropically aged at source Foursquare rum? 100%. But at this point, it's not possible to do that. So we do what we can. Um, so on to this one. This to me is a classic Foursquare. I just learned that you don't get the Foursquare ECS series at SAQ. Do you get them at LCBO, Ivar? Other than the one special release, you can get just the one special.
Yeah.
So, this is a classic Foursquare rum. You know, this is what the deal is if you haven't had one. This one is only aged 5 years in Barbados and 7 in the UK. So it drinks younger than it would be if it was a 12-year Barbados rum. The Angel share is a lot lower. I would call this closer to about an 8-year if it was fully aged in Barbados. 59% is where we bottled it. Definitely sheer as they're starting to age in Jamaica. They're looking for a warehouse in Barbados. They haven't done it yet. They want to. They've started aging in Asia at source as well, but none of those rums, you know, they've got a lot of things in the works. They've got new owners. They're looking at aging various places because that's really what their customers want. They never needed to before because nobody cared. Nobody cared where the rum was aged. Nobody cared. I mean, there was a very small group of independent bottlers in Europe that would be buying these, mostly in England and Germany and France. Um, and the whole aging at source, the whole cast strength, the whole worldwide independent bottlers scene has just exploded over the last 5 years. And with that, people are trying to keep their rums at source. Just it's more authentic expression. Rum has gotten away with that because of its colonialists. You don't bring Scotch whiskey to Kentucky and age it there and call it Scotch. You can't bring champagne to California and call it champagne, but you can age Barbados rum in England and still call it Barbados rum. It lets us have it, but it's not really as authentic as it would be if we could get it all down in Barbados. But I love this. I mean, this is the classic pot column blend, which is really what Mount Gay does, what Foursquare does. I think it's what the Plantaret guys do. I'm not sure. And then St. Nicholas Abbey is the fourth distillery in Barbados that they are just a pot still rum. Honey, brine, tobacco. I mean, this is just a really well-made rum. 59% is not the barrel proof. His rums come out generally between 63 and 65, 66%. He goes into the barrel at 65%. So he'll water it down from the still to go into the barrel at 65. And then we brought it down, a little bit to 59, just because we thought it drank really well at 59. Jamaican
So
rums. Yes, go ahead.
you do your own reduction?
Sometimes, not
Okay.
always. Um, Generally when we get a barrel, we'll sample it everywhere from like 45 to 65 and just see where it works best. Um, we use some great RO reverse osmosis water from Lake Erie. But Jamaican rums, for example, they come out of the still or go into the barrel even 75, even in the 80s sometime. So almost all Jamaican rums are proofed down. You rarely, I mean, I've never seen an 80 proof Jamaican rum released. One, even in Jamaica, 63% is usually the highest you'll get. Even though they, all come out of the barrel at 75, 76% or higher. Does that make my job easier and tougher or tougher? Which? I'm sorry, Carl. Um, you can speak in français if you want. It'll be quicker. Can't unmute. Okay. Can I unmute you? No, I can't.
Oh, I can. Sorry.
You can.
Let me see.
Hmm.
Oh no, I can't. Max, est-ce que tu es capable de le muter?
Max is the boss.
I think you are okay, so
Okay.
I think
So
he will say. I think he will say about you have in you tell in the 5 year you have many bottler in the world, so
yeah.
maybe it's more easier or tougher for you about that.
Yeah. Well, when we started, there was really nobody doing it in America. So it was really easy. Now there's at least 4 or 5 other independent bottlers, and more on the way, which to me as a rum drinker is a wonderful thing because everybody's trying to bring in their own cool things and do better and better. So the selection in America for rum is the best it's ever been for cast strength rums, for foreign rums, for agricoles. We're getting things that we never would have dreamed about. This one's more balanced. Yes. I'm not sure which Foursquare you've tasted. They're now that they've been around for 20 plus years, some of their rums are getting to be 17, 18, 19 years old. And especially the ones that are aged in the tropics, that can get pretty woody. There's a very high angel share loss, as you know, down in the tropics. So a 15-year, an 18-year-old tropically aged rum is generally going to be very woody. To me, the sweet spot is, 10 to 15 years, even 8 to 15 years without it getting too woody. That Dourley's, I can't see, is that the 8 or the XO or the 12 or the 14? Yeah, I mean, that's a spectacular rum. That's an amazing rum. I remember the first time I had that in London. A little bit of it, yeah. So, and because of this angel share loss, different countries have different ways of compensating. Because you look at a 18-year-old Jamaican rum or a 15-year, and it's not going to be, a little dregs of dried rum on the bottom. So what they do in Jamaica to compensate, every 3 years they'll combine barrels from the same batch. So, say they did 15 barrels of a distill run. After 3 years, they'll combine them. So maybe you'll have 13, and then after 6 years, you'll have 11. So maybe at the end of 15 years, you'll have 5 or 6 barrels left of that same rum. Otherwise, you would have just little bits, and the faster it evaporates, the faster it evaporates. So that's one way. Mauritius, for contrast, Ile de Maurice, what they do is they add water to compensate for angel share. So Mauritius rum goes into the barrel at 65%. And then after 5 years, they open it up and they proof it down to 60%. And then after 10 years, it evaporates. They add water to proof it down to 55% in the barrel. And then at 15 years, they'll bring it down to 50%. And that's as low as they will go on Maurice rum. Just a different way of compensating for angel share loss. I don't know what Richard does. Do you offhand, Ivar, know what Richard does to compensate for angel share? Does he also combine? Hmm. Okay, so I don't think he does for the ECS. Yeah, I don't think he does either. Um, he does a lot of barrels at once, so I don't know the answer to that. I know in Jamaica they do. Yeah. So Foursquare has been a huge success, not only with their own company, but through independent bottlers. I think just about every independent bottler in the world has released a Barbados cask by now. Uh, and there he does have secrets. My favorite Richard Seal quote is, "Transparency doesn't mean you have to reveal everything." And he has told me that several times when I've tried to get some information from him. We can unmute yourself. Sorry for that. No worries. So you've got every bottler in the world coming out with Foursquare releases. And they're all trying to distinguish themselves somehow. Like, why should I buy this Foursquare 2010 when we all know it comes from the main rum company. We all know it's the same batch that was sent over there. So what a lot of people have been doing are doing their own secondary maturations and doing aging in different barrels. So this one is a wonderful example of that. This was 11-year Barbados rum, so it was aged fully 11 years in Barbados, pot column. So he goes into the barrel as a blend of pot and column together. He doesn't put together a barrel of pot still and a barrel of column still and then blend them after the fact. He goes into the barrel as a blend. And then this one was stuck in an ex-whiskey cask, which originally had red wine. So it was a wine cask, then used for English whiskey, and then this wonderful rum. And then we brought it to US and we bottled it at cask strength. This one was 58.2, I believe, at cask strength. It tends to lose proof in the UK faster than it does in the tropics. We were able to put out a 20-year pot still Foursquare, which is unusual to find something that's pure pot still because he always goes into the blend. But 20 years ago, he shipped to the UK this unaged pot still rums, and they were sitting there for 20 years until they released them. And after begging and begging for 3 years, they finally agreed to sell me one barrel. And I brought it down to Richard because he hadn't tried it in 20 years. And he took one sip, and his comment was, "Lost a lot of ABV." You know, he recognized it, but to him, what was interesting is that it went out at 65%, and after 20 years in Liverpool, it was now at about 51, 52%, just by aging up in Liverpool. So that's why this one, with the 4 years, it came down to 58.2, even though it started at 65. And we've done several different varieties of Foursquare finishes. We've tried port casks. We did a Mouton Rothschild Bordeaux cask this year, which was really a wonderful one. And trying to figure out what to do next because we do have some more Foursquare. We're going to try some separate barrels. Not because it needs it necessarily, but it's so well established that it's nice to it's a good rum to play with. It really works well with different casks. The Jamaican rums for me are harder to work with on other casks because they have such strong personalities, and the Guyana rums as well. We could have a whole other 2-hour talk on the Guyana rums. But like Port Morant, which is their double wooden pot still, a very almost peaty, earthy rum, that does not play well with Sauterne casks and fortified wine casks. There's just too much battle going on between the Greenheart wood pot still and the sweetened fortified wines. Barbados rum really plays nicely with other casks. So I like playing with that. I wouldn't take a funky Jamaican rum and stick it in a port cask, although people do, and it's great. It's just not what I like to drink. I like to drink this one a lot. This is a good one also to convert the bourbon drinkers. Both of these. Yeah, there's the bourbon guys sort of jumped on the Foursquare train as being the most accessible to bourbon drinkers and whiskey drinkers. Which is great because it's the good stepping stone to, okay, you've had Barbados, now try Jamaica, now try Guyana. You want to try something crazy, try a Grand Arôme from, Réunion Island. So show of hands between the two, who likes just the ex-bourbon better? And who likes the whiskey wine class? Yes, I mean, that's the good things. I'll do a rum tasting with, 6 or 7 rums and 20 people, and I'll say, nobody is going to like all of them, but everybody's going to like at least one of them. And that's the glory of rum. There's a rum for everybody. I really wish we had more than 3 rums to pour. We have so many great rums that, I may need to come up and do one in person, either in Quebec or Montreal, or that would be fantastic. It's been a while since I've been up there. Are most people in Montreal or Quebec, or would I have to do 2 of them?
It would be nice be doing 2, and you should bring some bottle in your luggage,
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do.
Is most in Quebec City, but you have the invitation, Eric. If you come to Quebec City, so just tell us. We organize some couple events a year, so your friend.
I would love that. I would love that. Montreal is only 5.5-hour drive, and Quebec's only another 2.5 past that, right?
Yeah.
So not so far. Yeah. So SAQ is really tough because they want big volume at low prices and a lot of marketing money behind it. It's really hard for a small brand or an independent bottler to succeed in LCBO or SAQ. They're really not geared towards us. It would be wonderful if they came up with a craft division that was okay with selling, a couple of 100 cases a year instead of a couple of 1,000 cases. I would love to be able to figure out how. If Foursquare couldn't figure it out, there's no hope for us. It's a shame. If somebody knows how to do it, I have to do 3 then. 3 then. Montreal, Quebec, and where's the third one, Ivar? Toronto? That's not good. This is Quebec rum. This is not the Toronto Rum Club.
Well, I mean,
We accept people from all Canada, so I think the next month we have a virtual session with friends of Confrérie du Rhum, and some people from Vancouver buy the ticket, so it's nice to have people far away from Quebec and Ontario.
That's great. So these bottles, unfortunately, are only available in Alberta because Alberta is the place where you can get rum relatively easy. I think they're sold out most places, but there is one store that has them. Let me stop the share so now you can see. Let me see if I have the link of the store. There was one store and they got sold out pretty quickly once they dropped the price on them because they wanted to sell their rum, sadly. The store is bswliquor.com. Let me see if I can throw that in the chat. and I'm pretty sure they will ship to Montreal.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Great, so you know them already. So if any of these, were exciting to you, that's where you can get them. I think they sold out of the bourbon Foursquare. Yes, so they do have the whiskey wine and the Long Pond. Let me see what those prices come out to, how comparable they are to US prices. Pretty comparable, actually. It's you're not going to go to the US and get them for much cheaper. It's about the same price. Any shops in Hell's Kitchen? Yeah, 120 West 58th Street is the liquor store you want to go to in that area. Sean Kim is the owner, and he has an incredible rum selection. Not just us, but many, many others. They're all kind of tucked away. The store is about the size of my closet, and he's got, thousands of bottles of whiskeys and rums and everything. So yes, 120 West 58th Street. And then if you're going to go all the way to New York, oh yes, write me the name. Okay, I will do that. 120 West 58 Wine and Liquor. And that is at 120 West 58th Street. There we go.
Right.
And then if you're going to go to New York City, you really do need to go to Astor Wines because they have the largest rum selection in New York State, I would say. They in Baytown. How is sales going in Canada? Can we expect more of your releases to be available in Alberta? That's a great question, Ivar. Sales honestly have been slow because it's hard to sell to the whole country via only mail order in Alberta. It's difficult for me to go out and get liquid to lips and do tastings in Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver when then people have to go buy it online. And it's still a challenge to get the general public to accept that rums can be $150 or $200. They have no problem spending that for whiskey or bourbon, but when it comes to rum is still a $10 bottle of, liquid. So, we can have more available in Alberta if there's demand for it. If we sell, and I think we're pretty much sold out of the last shipment, our Alberta importer will order some more for us. But we really need either an online store in Canada that is better at shipping. It's a challenge. It really is. Having to sell through without having an employee in Canada who's able to go around all over the place, do tastings, get in multiple provinces. It's challenging for small brands with not a lot of marketing money. Astor Wines, Canada. Yes. Are you driving down, Maxime? Or are you flying?
Yeah, I'm driving down with
Okay.
my family, so I don't I can't go to Astor, so I'm not sure. I just go with the girls.
To Hell's Kitchen. That's great.
But I know
Um,
Astor is the place, so I went next time, not next time, with Pierre in 2018 and 19. We go there, and the selection is fabulous. So that's the place, and I know all the kind of rum you can have this. So
okay.
maybe next time.
Um,
And Eric, there's a lot
we-
of education that needs to be done still in Canada. So people don't know why a pot still rum will be while a column still rum will be cheaper than a pot still rum, and why the tropical aging. So why a 10 years old rum, 100% age
yeah.
in his own country will be much will cost more than a rum age in Liverpool. So there's a lot of education to do, so people know why they're paying that much money for a certain rum.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. A column still rum is cheaper than a pot still rum. A molasses rum is cheaper than a fresh cane juice rum. A tropically aged rum is, more expensive than a rum aged in the UK or elsewhere. So if you have a single estate fresh cane juice pot still rum aged in the tropics, that's $130 for a 4-year-old rum. And they say, why is that rum $130 when I can get a 4-year, Bacardi for $10? And it's not the same. Have you gotten any of the Mahoba in Quebec, the South African
Uh,
rums?
Not in Quebec. We got
Oh,
them
okay.
through Alberta, but
No,
not directly in Quebec.
that's the Bira release, right? Through
Yeah.
Carl? Yeah. Those delicious rum. Um, yeah, I mean that's the perfect example of a small artisanal craft, single estate. He grows his own cane. He built his own pot stills. And it's really expensive to make. Um, and you can't compare that on price with any other rum. Age is not just, and then you see, Panamanian rums that are 15 years old for $30. And it's a massive industrial column still. It's much cheaper. Generally, however, though, if you see a 21-year-old rum and it's $30, it's not a 21-year-old rum.
Yeah.
It's a bullshit rum. I had an interesting conversation at the Miami Rum Fest this past month, and there was a new brand that I won't mention by name, but it was a cigar roll, a famous cigar roller of somewhere, I think in the Dominican Republic, and he was coming out with his old rum, and it had a big 18-year on it. And I said, "Tell me about this rum." And he said, "Oh, it's an 18-year-old Solera rum from the Dominican Republic." And I said, "What does that mean?" He says, "Well, 40% of the rum is 18 years old." And I'm like, "What about the rest?" He says, "Well, the rest is 15 years." And I said, "Oh, so it's a 15-year rum." He says, "No, it's an 18-year-old rum." I'm like, "But that's not what the law says." He says, "Yes, the law says you can list it as the oldest rum in the Solera as the age statement." And I'm like, Don't tell me the laws in this country. You're a cigar maker. There's a reason your bottle doesn't say 18 years on it. It just has a big number 18. It's okay if you want to put out shitty Dominican rum, but don't lie about it." And it just that's the kind of thing that holds back the category. That these people are just pushing these blatant, like my rum is 18 years old because it's got a little drop in there, and that's what I'm allowed to say. Well, no, you're not allowed to say that, and your bottle doesn't even say that. There's a lot of bullshit that goes on in rum that you would not accept in whiskey. Um, it's sad. I posted a picture online the other day. I was in one liquor store and there was Boom Boo. Do you get Boom Boo in
Yeah.
Quebec? Yeah.
I get that
Sadly,
around.
so
This was
The regular one and the XO.
this was the premium rum shelf at a store in Florida, and the Boom Boo and the Hamden were right next to each other as like these are the good quality rums, and you would never see Fireball sitting next to Macallan on a shelf. But it's really the same thing. You have a 37% liqueur sitting next to this beautiful Hamden pot still 250-year-old rum, and they're both $60. And people think, oh, this one is smooth, it's sweet, and how smooth it is. Oh, that Hamden is awful. Ugh. That's the problem that rum has, because
Yeah.
people going into it, they taste smooth and when they taste sweet, and oh boy, this is so easy to drink because you've got a lot of sugar and vanilla and glycerol in there. It's not real, but we let people, stores think, okay, it's a 23-year-old Solera, it's 23-year-old rum. There's a lot of bullshit that we have to deal with to try and bring rum to elevate it as a category.
Yeah.
I'm
And
I'm sorry if I was speaking too fast there. I get excited about that.
we're pretty much all rum geek over here, so
Yeah, that's same.
yeah.
And it's hard to forget sometimes that we are in such a small bubble
Yeah.
that when you speak to rum geeks all day long, you think everybody believes that. Where in the rest of the world, most people don't drink rum at all. And of the people that do drink rum, most of them are drinking Bacardi or Captain Morgan's or Sailor Jerry. And then so here's everybody that drinks spirits. And of that, here's the people that drink rum. And of that, if that was this big, here's the people that, drink stuff other than Bacardi and Captain Morgan's. And, we're a microcosm of a microcosm. We're such a small little group here.
Yeah. And that's why the LCBO and the ACQ, why they don't bring those great
because
songs,
rum doesn't sell. I've gone to stores and I've tasted owners and they say, this is some of the best spirit I've ever had. If it was bourbon, I would buy 50 cases, but I'll take, 1 6-pack because it's rum and rum doesn't sell. And I'll go to bars and there'll be a choice of Malibu or Bacardi, or maybe if we're lucky, like a Myers or a Zacapa. And I say, do you have anything, unsweetened or stronger? And they're like, no, nobody asks for rum. I'm like, well, maybe because you have no rum worth drinking at the bar. So it's hard to really find. I drink a lot of Jamesons at bars because there's no rum to drink. It's a challenge. It really is. But
yeah, and there's still a belief from non-rum drinker that rum is supposed to be sweet. So there's this also, So some of my friends, they come to my house and they ask me for rum, and they believe rum is gonna be a sweet spirit, and I pour them something and they will say, oh no, I don't like this, it's not what I want. So yeah, it's sometimes there's a lot to do to educate people. I don't like the term educate, but it is what it is.
It is. One of these days I want to go to a rum show and take a bottle of one of our rums and just add some simple syrup and maybe add a little caramel so it looks like a nice dark sweet rum, and say, for the people who say, what do you have that's sweet? Like, here it is, buy this and just add your own sugar. There you go.
Yeah.
It's frustrating at times. So, but yeah, I do need to make it up to Canada again. It's been a couple of years, so hopefully
you need to come, and you have to come and bring some bottle too.
I promise I will not come into the state without bringing many bottles. We have a lot
or a full cask
or a full barrel. Yes, if we could sell a barrel, we would love to do a barrel, or even get this. This is the one that I thought we could really do with SAQ or or LCBO. This was the rum. How many bottles in a barrel? They range between 170 to 270, depending on if you proof them down or not. If you release a rum that's in the barrel at 65% at full cask strength, you'll maybe get 180, 190 bottles. But if you proof it down to 55, you'll get an extra 50 bottles out of it, or 60 bottles. So it really depends. We've gotten as few as 150 and as many as 300. So 350, I think the most we ever got was 55 6-packs. So 330, that was in the Mauritius cognac barrels, which are bigger barrels. Customs, yeah, just sticking in the back of the car and the dog. So yeah, this rum is, if we can get anything in mass production, that's the hope for this one. And this was the blend, which I would have loved to have had you taste. It was the first one I created. And I really wanted to make a rum that was the 3 styles. It was part English, part French, and part Spanish. So I did a blend of Foursquare because I love Foursquare, a Venezuelan column still, and then a VSOP Martinique Agricole to really tie them all together. And it's a really versatile rum for everything, and hoping to get that, under $50 Canada, if possible. but I think SAQ would want it for like $40 Canada or 35, and I don't own a distillery, and VSOP Martinique Agricole is not cheap. Nor is Foursquare. So I mean, the problem we face is it's hard to compete on price with people who are really only looking at price and marketing spend. Like if Foursquare can't do it, we can. And Appleton, bottles half of their stuff in Canada to take advantage of that, I think, don't they?
Yep.
So it's really challenging. Um, and then to get lots of people drinking it, other than the 500 people in Canada who are complete rum geeks. So, but we will try. Ivar's done a great job in Toronto. If those of you who don't know Ivar, he runs Rum Club Canada out of Toronto and has an amazing rum blog, Rum Revelations. Um, he's a Canadian rum celebrity, even though he won't admit it. But I mean, it's a lot of work from all of us. It really is. I'm preaching to the converted, as they say. So this one, if you can find, I mean, this one I really wish you could get. This was the Bordeaux cask. We took some Foursquare, some 12-year Foursquare, and we stuck it in the Mouton Rothschild barrel for 2 full years. After 1 year, we brought it down to Barbados, and Richard said, "Yeah, you didn't screw it up." Because he was like, don't use wine casks. Don't use wine casks. They're difficult to work with. You'll contaminate it. You'll get fungal. You'll get bacteria. Don't work with wine. Stay with fortified wine. And I'm like, we want to try the Bordeaux. And we brought it down, and he took a sip and said, "Yeah, you didn't screw it up, but it needs more time in the barrel." So we left it in another year, brought it back. He's like, "Yeah, it's pretty good. I'd still keep it in another 2 more years, but like, Richard, we don't have 40,000 barrels. We've got like 10 of these. So we got 1 barrel of this and we can't sit on it much longer." So we released it and we got a pretty good, which is high praise. Um, and then I think even Ivar said it was pretty good. So yeah, we're really pleased with this one. It sold out really quickly. There was only 240 bottles. But I know there's some available in Phoenix, Arizona, if you know anybody in Phoenix, Arizona that can get it. And not crazy expensive. I think it was probably priced similar to the whiskey wine cask that you're tasting now. Yeah. I would have loved to have tried it with 4 or 5 years in the Bordeaux. Maybe next time. Um, so yeah, I'm happy to talk about any rum subject, America's subject, different countries' rums. I get to travel around to a lot of distilleries. It's really one of the fun parts. Just bring a bottle and come see us in Martinique. I would love to. That's next year, right?
Yeah.
I have to see when the school holidays are. And it's either that week or the week before or after. If I could convince my family to come to Martinique for the week and they can sit at the beach and we'll just drink rum all week. That sounds like a wonderful holiday. I was talking about it today, so I may join you. How many people? 25 person.
Yeah.
Wow. I would love to be able to. It's a little far in advance.
You'll see.
Yes. And then do
Take
we
your
do
time.
Guadeloupe next year?
Guadeloupe, maybe the year after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to Réunion.
Ah, that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long flight. Or French Guiana. That's much closer, but there's only one distillery there.
Yeah.
So, um, anybody like the Jamaican rum best of the three? You did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Was not expecting that one. I can't pick a favorite. I like all three of them. They're each really very different rums.
Yeah.
So, what is the reason for your New York trip, Max? Just see Broadway shows?
Yeah, just for family. My little girl of 9 years old never goes to New York, so
Uh,
it will be a weekend, a fun weekend.
what are you going to see?
Oh, maybe tourist attraction, most
Okay,
of
not
the more popular show, Times
not a
Square,
Broadway.
whatever.
Go see Lion King or something like that. Everybody loves
Yeah.
the Lion. For a 9-year-old, yes, Lion King is a great one.
Just to see New York at this age, I think this is big. So for us,
Yeah, it's
and
gonna
I have
be.
a question for you, Eric.
Yes.
You're visiting much distilleries. Do you have some prefer? I think you have goes to MOBA this autumn, so maybe a new
Yeah, I
one,
mean,
or he goes to Martinique too. So maybe you have visiting many distilleries, more than like all the groups. So sorry for
which
my
ones
English.
do I
So I
like?
try to be my best.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of distilleries aren't really open for public tourists. Um, like Mahoba, for example, isn't really one that you could go visit if you're just in the neighborhood. But something like Hamden, if you get down to Jamaica, Hamden is a wonderful tour.
Yeah.
Appleton has a great rum experience in Jamaica. Those two, Mount Gay and St. Nicholas Abbey have great ex tasting experience, and Foursquare is pretty much just open. You could
Yeah.
just walk around the whole distillery. So Barbados and Jamaica are two great rum tourist destinations. Um, Réunion, um, Isautier has a great rum museum that you can kind of walk through, and then at the end try their 17,000 different rum arrangés. Um, in Ile de Maurice, there is Chamarel, which is beautiful, tasting room, and you can see the stills. Savannah is a big, enormous industrial sugar factory. It's not
Okay.
really open to the public.
You can do
Um,
the boat if you do Reunion. You can do Maurice too in couple days.
yeah, you should. They're a 45-minute flight apart. So there's 6 distilleries in Maurice and 3 in Reunion. Reunion is Savannah, Isautier, and Rivière du Mont. And the only one that's really open for visitors is the Isautier.
You
Where
can't
in
visit the others.
You may if you reach out to them, but it's not really, they don't do public tours like
Okay.
Hampton does or Appleton does. Chamarel does tours, Isautier. I don't know about Le Bourdonnais or Medine in Maurice. I know Gray's Distillery is not really open for tours.
Oh yeah.
Um, but again, if you're a rum blogger or professional, they'll maybe give you some professional courtesy if you're coming with a group, but uh, they haven't really developed rum tourism there yet.
Yeah.
St. Lucia is starting, they're building a big visitor center now. It's not open yet, but that's going to be a great trip once that's all finished in St. Lucia. Grenada, River Antoine Distillery is a phenomenal one to visit. If you don't know the Rivers Antoine Distillery, uh, it hasn't really changed much in 250 years. There's no electricity. It's run by a water mill. It's really an incredible trip back in time. They don't age. All their rum is unaged. It's 76% there, 69% off the island, so they can fly with it. But yeah, that's a great distillery to visit. Hamden, Foursquare, St. Nicholas Abbey in Barbados. And then sadly, I have not been to Martinique or Guadeloupe, so I cannot speak of them. What do I think about New York Rum Fest? Sorry, Carl. It's worth visiting. It depends on sometimes the speakers are really good, sometimes the classes are really good. Um, I don't know yet who's going to be speaking this year. I thought last year was a lot of fun. There's a lot of good brands there, a lot of brands you won't get in Canada. And it's the closest one if you wanted to just drive down for a weekend.
Yeah, I think the New York Rum Fest and the San Francisco Rum Fest, they're great for the speaking part with the yeah. But about the rum, it's you can compare them to the
European
rum
ones.
they do in Europe. So
No,
But
no place.
find
in
all the
Italy,
rum, all the possible brand, but in the US, it's a bit more restricted.
they are probably the most popular in US. So like Chicago or Texas or I think Miami is big, but the other one maybe a little. Eric,
Miami
can
was
you
the
tell us?
biggest.
Yeah,
Miami was the
Miami is the
biggest, then
biggest.
New York and San Francisco.
Yeah,
But again, compared to London or Paris or, it's much smaller.
they are one event in Miami or two. I think
There
they
are
are
two right
two
now.
two
There's actually
organizations.
three. There's three
Oh
in
yeah,
Miami. There's one that's only Spanish speaking, and then there's two that are there's Fede Hernandez's Miami Rum Congress, and then
yeah,
there's Robert Burr's Rum Renaissance Festival, which
yeah. We
happens
know them,
later on.
Federico.
Right. Yeah. So Fede runs the ones in New York, Miami, Chicago, LA, San Francisco. Those are all his. But Ian Burrell's in London and the Whiskey Exchanges in London and Whiskey Live and this the spa, Rum Spa in Belgium.
Yeah, very big event.
Yeah, much bigger. We get very little rum agricole or very little of the French rums in America. We'll get St. James will come and they will have a booth with like 20 rums, and only three of which you can actually buy in America. Like here are these great rums, but you can't get them. And Spiribam, Rum JM and Clement. And we can get some Nissan, but generally not the really good age stuff, not the expensive stuff. So
Yeah,
we're
based
very
off, we
limited.
have Ben Jones in a virtual session like you tonight, and we have Joshua Sink too. You know them? 1 4 2 3, the spirits
Oh
from
yeah,
Denmark.
yeah,
Yeah,
Joshua Singh. Yep. I
yeah,
know both Ben and Joshua, and they're both great, great guys advancing the cause of rum.
yeah. Dynamic and passionate guy about the rum. So
Yeah.
you can't say the contrary.
Yes. Tell them I said hello to both of them. I very much like Ben and Joshua. So, but if I was to fly somewhere for a rum festival, I would go to London or Paris instead of New York. If you wanted to drive and get on a road trip, New York is fun, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Um, any anything else?
Est-ce qu'il y en a qui ont des questions? Si vous avez des questions, peu importe si c'est à propos des 3 rums qu'on a dégustés ou si vous avez d'autres questions sur d'autres distilleries, sur les rums en général ou sur la marque, gênez-vous pas.
Ouais. Well, merci beaucoup pour
Right.
votre temps. I had fun. Je me suis, yeah. Oh, my French is bad. Next year I'll be better. My Duolingo is, I need to practice more.
I think
Yeah,
you
let's
learn
take more
presently
rum.
French, so this is the good way to be better. It's learn more.
Yeah.
Which
Le prochain.
Immersion is
what
the best thing.
Yeah. Oui, d'accord.
you learn
D'accord.
some movie?
Immersion.
You just read some book? What is your trick?
My trick is Duolingo, the app.
Oh,
Yes, I have my iPhone app. It's my French app. Every day I do 15 minutes or 20 minutes of French. There we go. There's the owl,
Nice.
and he teaches me French. So that I spent 3 years now. I started during the pandemic, and I always wanted to learn, and I still can't say anything. I can read it now though, so I can read your questions, but it's now I'm in the recipe section. It's a wonderful little app if you want to learn a language. See?
J'entends souvent parler de ce boucher.
See? J'entends souvent parler de ce boucher. I hear good things about this butcher. See? That's useful. It's useful. So anyway, thank you. Keep up the good rum fight. The only way to get good rums there is to ask for them. You know, keep asking SAQ.
Yeah.
You know, get more people that want to buy it. Why French? That's a great question, Carl, because I already speak Spanish, Portuguese, German, and I didn't, and French was really one I needed to learn.
Cool. So thanks for your time. It was
Oh,
great.
my pleasure.
Yeah.
Next time in person, hopefully. Do you do
Yeah,
in-person
we'll do that.
events also?
Pardon me?
You do live events
Yeah,
also?
yeah.
Okay.
We do both.
I'll try to make that happen, and I'll bring 6 totally different rums, and we'll make a fun
Yeah.
time of it.
Salute
Yeah,
to
thanks.
Maura, and if you come to Quebec City, just tell us, and people around here probably be in person and more, so you're welcome.
I have not been to Quebec City in 40 years.
So
I
it's magnifique ville. C'est vraiment
know.
une ville magnifique.
I used to go to Montreal all the time because I went to college in Massachusetts, and it was a quick drive, and you could drink at 18 years old. So we would go to Montreal all the time. I love Quebec. And then my car broke down somewhere in Trois-Rivières, I think, and I had to spend a night there.
Yeah.
But,
And it's got nothing to do with the Rhum Trois-Rivières.
yeah, no, not at all.
No.
And the other thing I want that Maura wants to do is go ice skating in that loop in the forest outside of Quebec. So we'll have to come in the winter sometime also.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And,
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, it's really fun. If you want any of those rums that are left, feel free to get them in Alberta. Otherwise, I'll bring 6 new ones, and hopefully our importer can bring some more rums for you guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. It's very appreciated. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Pleasure is mine.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
If
Tout
some
le monde,
people
je vous remercie de
will
votre temps. Il y a des choses